Hey guys, Bucks Tech here. It's October 17th, 2024. It's been a little while since I've done an update on my salad rigs, so I wanted to catch you up on everything. I recently had 9 rigs for the last couple of months total, and decided to take one rig down because I had 4 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte cards, and I felt like it was a bit redundant. That was about 1 or 2 more than I really wanted to, but the opportunities came up for me to acquire those cards by getting rid of some older cards. I found a guy that lives a couple miles up the road that builds PCs, and we were able to do some trades on some of my EVGA 3070s for his 4060 Ti's and exchange a few power supplies and all that. So it's good to have like a mutual friend and seller friend that is also in the PC parts industry, business, whatever you want to call it, secondhand market, and really have as many of those as you can, because it's nice to be able to swap parts like that and to make it work. Sometimes you run into different things, you never know. So it's nice to have a couple different situations. But so I've got 8 salad rigs now. I'll catch you up here. This is a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte Asus ProArt with a 5800X, and I believe there is 128 gigabytes of RAM, DDR4 RAM. It's on a humongous power supply too. Like, I had these two 1600 watt EVGA platinum power supplies from mining and having, pretty much 6-7 3070s running on one of these things. And I can't seem to really get the money that I want for a 1600 watt power supply, especially like a nice platinum. Like, no one really wants to pay $180, $200 for a power supply when, you can get all you need for 850 watt, 1000 watt would suit most people, even looking at higher end cards, that you wouldn't need. 1600 watt is like, when are you ever going to use that unless you're like dual running 4090s or running a mining rig or server. So anyway, just a little rant about that, but that's how that rig was constructed. It is my most consistent rig right now. It's been on this $3.83 max per day job for, I want to say this is day 3 or 4 now, and it uses very little resources. As you can see, it's only using 2% of my GPU, 19 gigs of there's 20 gigs of the 128 gigabytes memory. It's using some CPU, that's the 5800X in there, but it doesn't seem to be abusing it too hard, who knows. And I need to update this rig. This is the only rig I haven't updated since 1.6.7 came out, because it's been on a container and you don't want to interrupt something like this that's been going on for days. Just don't touch it. Whatever you do. I know it's tempting when you see this little red thing in the corner and you have little pop-ups that say update, update, update. Like, if you don't turn those notifications off, it will not shut up. Like, I've come to my computer, a day after a salad update was pushed out, and it would have I would click through like 23 to 30 notifications of the same thing. Super annoying. So turn notifications off if you know how to do so in your Windows settings. This is Windows 10. So that's that rig. Rig number 2 is this 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte GPU. The CPU is a 4350G Ryzen with integrated graphics, so it's a 4-core 8-thread CPU, and I believe that's on a X570 Pro motherboard and just a normal power supply there. It's been probably my most least consistent rig. It hasn't really gotten a ton lately in the last week or so, but it'll go through periods where it's like always busy for days and days. So everything's kind of a cycle once you kind of realize that. I know it's easy to get impatient with earnings, and especially if you just have one rig and it's not doing everything, but it's doing something for every couple of days. But yeah, this rig is really nice. I mean, this tough card is super nice. I scored that super cheap on Facebook Marketplace at the time. I want to say I got this card and a power supply, brand new, sealed. I don't know what they were doing because they bought a brand new and didn't use it, didn't open it, and I verified all that. And I want to say I got this and a 850 watt Seasonic Gold power supply for $700, and I was like, I snapped it up so fast. I actually ended up trading that power supply to the guy that's been swapping me the 4060s TIs. So anyway, that one's not making anything at the moment. Excuse me. This rig, sometimes I have the fan blowing over this memory. It's kind of trapped over here. It doesn't really have any airflow. I don't think it really needs it, but sure, why not? And this fan also blows towards me, so if I'm working on my rigs in this garage especially during the summer, it gets kind of hot. So just to have like some airflow blowing back at me while I'm kind of messing with all of my rigs is nice. But this is a RTX 4080 16 gigabyte, not a super, on a B550 Tough motherboard. That's got a 5700G Ryzen CPU with integrated graphics. This is an old power supply from, I've had this on a mining rig for 4 or 5 years now. I mean, I've beat this thing up. I think it was used in a mining rig from the guy I got it from for a year or two. This thing's really durable, so I'm holding on to that. And then this is 96 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. You can't really see, there you go. It's mixed RAM, but it works. And eventually I'll upgrade that to 128, but the rig's working and I can't really complain. I mean, certainly right now it's not making anything, but this rig, I have two 4080 rigs. This rig is more consistent than my other 4080 rig with 128 gigabytes of memory. I don't know why. It's got the same processor. And while we're talking about that, I'll show you that rig. Another 4080 regular with 5700G, a 850 watt Corsair power supply, and this one should have, this is 128 gigabytes of RAM, and it's currently doing nothing also, but you can see in WSL that there's some activity. So it's, my conclusion is, I don't know this, maybe if someone has a better answer for this, but you can see you have your Ethernet and your Ethernet WSL if you're running Windows 10. See how they're opposites? So it's like sending 2.4, receiving 2.4, sending 78 or 80, receiving 70. See, it's like flip-flopped. I think that's like some kind of benchmarking program for your PC, but sometimes it does this for a while. If there's a salad dev or someone that knows better, that could maybe explain this, but it does appear like you are working and not making anything. But like, you know, it's hard to verify anything. They're very secretive with some of the information specifics on salad. But I want to say, in my mind, I'm like, all right, that's benchmarking something because it's sending while it's receiving. So it's like, hey, computer, can you send and receive this information as fast as we need to keep up with, you know, whatever's going on. I don't know, but it's not making anything currently. So, you know, kind of like any of these cards, that's why I try to have a variety of cards, is so I know, okay, you know, 4080s aren't really doing much, but 4060 Ti's are busy. So we'll go to the next one. So I have this little HDMI switcher here, and this is rig 4. This is kind of very rudimentary way of setting this up probably, but this is rig 4. It is another ProArt 4060 Ti 16 gig. It's an i3 9100 with 128 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, another giant 1600 watt power supply on a Gigabyte Z390 UD board that a buddy donated to me. This rig was my most consistent rig up until a couple of days ago. It had a container for like weeks. So it is currently it went off yesterday and was calculating for a while and kind of went on and off, but now it looks like it's caught one of these high RAM usage containers that only pay up to $1.30 per day. So, which is weird because it's like, that's a lot of RAM. 63, sometimes it goes up to like 68. So you're actually doing more than, if someone's putting 64 gigs of RAM in their system, if you're hitting 68, they can't get those containers. So you really have to have higher than 64 gigs of RAM to run this container, but yet it only pays $1.30 maximum. I don't really understand that. It is an i3, so it typically on most containers, it'll use up to about 40%. Sometimes it'll bump up 60, 70% usage of my CPU. But I've kind of found CPUs don't really matter in Salad. I mean, maybe they do on the back end and I don't know it. But like I said, this was the most busy rig I had for like weeks. And it's on the smallest 4-core, 4-thread processor. That's the smallest processor I have on any of my rigs. So nice to see some work there. There's no 5. Going to the 1 input here, and that is this one, which is this rig. Another 4060 Ti. No, wait, no, this is a 3060 Asus Dual. I recently changed this. It was a 4060 Ti, but I swapped some things around just for try to get, sometimes when multiple rigs don't have a container, I'll kind of play around with those things and maybe I shouldn't fiddle with it and just let it go, but sometimes I'm like, well, maybe this would be more optimal if the 3060 was with the i7-8700, which is what this is, with a massive, actually it's a tiny cooler, but I put 2 Noctua fans on it. But a 3060 RTX 12 gig with an i7-8700 on a Z370 board with 64 gigs of DDR4 3600, which I know is overkill for Intel. It's actually 3600 CL16, and this motherboard will not let me use XMP. So every time I do it, won't boot. So I knocked it back down to whatever, 36 CL18, 3600 CL18. And yeah, so this one is making 10 cents. So I almost see this as kind of a benchmark too. Some people say it's like a CPU container, but I know it doesn't usually last very long. So it doesn't use much memory and it uses almost no GPU, and it does spike the internet for whatever reason. And so we'll move on to the next one. The second to last rig I'll talk about, that's this mouse. This is a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte graphics card with a Ryzen 9 5900X. This was my old PC CPU, a main PC, which I don't even use for Salad. But I went to a 5800X 3D, so I had the 5900X. It's way overkill for Salad, but whatever. A friend told me that power supply, it's a Super Flower, pretty cheap. This motherboard sucks. It's an X570S, so it doesn't have the heatsink fan on the chipset, on the X570 chipset, because as you may know, X570s all had a chipset fan until late in the cycle, the model, cycle or year or whatever, they made the S versions, X570S, which had no fan over the chipset. It just had an extra big cooler. Well, this is the Gigabyte Aero. I got it because my build is white. I actually ended up, you can't really see because of this cooler, but I had a different cooler on it in my personal build, and I spray painted the little heat sink things that go over the storage. I spray painted those white. It was a really cool build. I did it off the motherboard, I did it separately, just by themselves, and added a little flare. There aren't very many white X570 motherboards at all. I think the only one that I know of is the Asus Prime, and it's a very basic motherboard, and I didn't want that motherboard. So I found this, and it does not turn off. After 2 years, hold on, got audio issue. after 2 years of ownership, the it won't let my CPU, my PC shut off. As soon as I like go into Windows, start menu, shut down. As soon as it takes like 30 seconds, takes a long time to shut down. As soon as it shuts down, boom, clicks right back on and restarts the PC. It's super annoying. I did everything in the book. I got Gigabyte. They tried different methods. I went online. I scanned the internet, and I just could not figure out a solution. Nothing worked. Changing all the BIOS settings. I just like poured hours into it and could never figure out anything other than my conclusion is the heatsink or the chipset gets too hot and it won't let the computer shut down, or there's just something internal there, maybe a fuse or something that blew, that it's allowing the board to run, but it's kicking something back on when I try to shut it off. And currently, I'm sorry to blabber about that, but 5900X 1200 watt power supply, 4060 Ti 16 gig, currently making nothing. It actually was just on a container, so some of these containers lately have kind of been coming on for an hour or two and shutting off. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm standing with my garage rigs. I may end up putting one of these in a PC and selling that and only having 7 total rigs, like a lucky 7, because I do have a BTC miner I want to put out here. Maybe since the garage is going to be cooler as winter is or fall actually is kind of setting in and lowering the temperatures, so it's making where I can not have to worry about the heat situation in this garage. But yeah, there's only, as you can see, one, two, three or four rigs that have containers, and only one of them is really like all that good. There's $1.30. This one's like a 383 or something like that. And then my last rig is my CPU test bench. Should really transition that better, but this is my test bench, and it is a RTX 3090 Asus TUF on a X570 Dark Hero board, 64 gigs of DDR4 memory, and a giant Noctua heatsink covering a 5950X. And I put this industrial fan over it. It's actually horrific looking, but I don't feel like changing it. I think it looks kind of cool in a way. I'm probably the only one on that boat, but I was really actually in love with that Noctua heatsink, and I wanted to use it in something, and I guess I could use it on another salad rig, but it's just like a work of art, dude. Like, it looks so cool. So I wanted to use that, and then it's a 5950X, so I'm like, hey, I need probably a little bit of an assist on this cooling, especially if I'm going to be doing salad with it. So let's go salad. All right, so let's see what I'm making here. Okay, so here's my income over the last 24 hours. This has been decent. So before they changed the pricing and the tiering of all the hardware, typically with all my rigs running, like an average range for me was $12 to $16, $18 a day. Sometimes it would go to like 20 or 22, but like that was like the average range I wanted to be in. So since they changed the price tiering, this is a little bit closer to the higher end of what I've been getting the last, let's see, this, I think the cutoff really started here. So it's been going up. It was kind of rough there for a few days. I went on vacation and stuff too, and I shut a few rigs down, and then there was some, like, as soon as I went on vacation, what was it, like a few days, was it last week, I guess, the end of last week? As soon as I did, they pushed an update, and all my rigs dropped containers. As I was like 5 hours away from my house driving. And I was like, oh, great. Like I had no remote system set up. So they ended up actually coming like back on their own and eventually caught containers, but it was super frustrating at the time. But yeah, profits are down a little bit over when I started in June to now. There was kind of a ramp up period, so it's hard to get like a direct, like exactly how much I was making compared to now, because I was adding rigs. I started with 1 and then now got up to 9, and then I scaled it back down to 8, and then I had a couple like times where I had to go to town, so I didn't want every single rig running while I was gone, so I only selected a representative for each graphics card, or anything that was already on containers. I just left them running, so I ended up shutting like 3 or 4 rigs down, so it kind of skewed my results a little bit. But if you want to look at the last 7 days, my best paying day was on the 15th, and I made $12.37 that day, with 8 rigs. And also, if you look at the last 30 days per rig, and then one thing I wish that Salad would do is make it to where you could turn some of these off that weren't being used. Is that all my rigs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel like that's not showing all my rigs. Let's try that again. Okay. I think they did kick out a couple ones that I wasn't using for very long, because I actually had to skip like 4 of these, and now I've only got to take 2 of them, even though I haven't had 4F1 is one I haven't had for a very long time. This one I did. That's the rig that I defunct and making into a gaming PC, which I'm selling. But maybe this graph is kind of messed up. But anyway, yeah, that's what last 24 hours. Let's do the last 30 days. And say my best day was probably like this. 379, 260, $1.99, basically $2. So that 3C is my 4060 Ti 16 gig, the one that's on the bottom by itself, or the bottom shelf, lower shelf by itself. And then my second most consistent card is my 3090. That's the last probably 3 days has been the story. And then I've had 4060 Ti there, the 9BB, and the BC 252. That's all 4060 Ti. But yeah, that's it hasn't been awesome. I've had a couple rigs that are just kind of holding everyone up, or like, propping everyone up to, they're like basically carrying. And even if I look further back here, like on a really good day, 3090 was making $4.40. Those were nice days. And then 4080s were actually doing pretty good back then at 5E and A79 or 4080s. Those have kind of fallen off. Here's the vacation. It was awful. So I was like, day before vacation, everything's good. Leave for vacation. I turned some of these off, or I turned like 2 or 3 of these off. And 4 hours away from the house. And all of them shut off except my test bench. So anyway, that's what the everything's looking like lately. Sorry for the long video, but I've kind of been wanting to, give my summary and kind of let everyone know what the rig situation looks like now. I also have a Avalon Nano 3 that I want to do a short video on, and I've got a Bidax Supra, so I'm doing some BTC mining with some ASIC hardware that I want to cover, but that's not going to make it in this video. But I hope everyone has a great day. Please like and subscribe. If you have any comments or anything, let me know how your rigs are doing. I'm just curious to see, if you've got similar hardware to me, or if you've got very different hardware, how's that holding up? And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks again, guys. Take care.